Good evening and welcome back to our daily devotional readings. A special welcome to the members of our imaginary monastery. I hope you missed me yesterday and I hope you enjoyed the break and realized what a burden it is actually to be committed to a daily practice. A burden that we will probably not regret taking upon ourselves. Let's pause for a second. Turn inwards. Open our minds and our hearts. And listen to Plato. Socrates. Then when we were asked what is knowledge, we no more answered what is knowledge than what is not knowledge. Theodorus, I suppose not. Socrates, here then is a fine result. We collected our first answer in our eagerness to prove that nothing is at rest. But if nothing is at rest, every answer upon whatever subject is equally right. You may say that a thing is or is not thus, or if you prefer, becomes thus. And if you say becomes, we shall not then hamper them with words expressive of rest. Theodorus, quite true. Socrates, yes, Theodorus, except in saying thus and not thus. But you ought not to use the words thus, for there is no motion in thus or in not thus. The maintainers of the doctrine have as yet no words in which to express themselves, and must get a new language. I know of no word that will suit them, except perhaps know-how. N-O, how, not K-N-O-W, how, like know, how, which is perfectly indefinite. Theodorus, yes, that is a manner of speaking in which they will be quite at home. And so, Theodorus, we have got rid of your friend without assenting to his doctrine, that every man is the measure of all things. A wise man only is a measure. Neither can we allow that knowledge is perception, certainly not on the hypothesis of a perpetual flux, unless perchance our friend Theaetetus is able to convince us that it is. Theodorus, very good, Socrates. And now that the argument about the doctrine of Protagoras has been completed, I am absolved from answering, for this was the agreement. Theaetetus, a reminder. Thus far in the argument we have the great Socrates, we have Theodorus, a great geometrist, and of the same age as Socrates, and we have Theaetetus, a young boy, who really existed and whom we encountered in the beginning of the dialogue as a brave warrior. The boy, Theaetetus, now interrupts or intercepts, well, I don't know. Not Theodorus, until you and Socrates have discussed the doctrine of those who say that all things are at rest, as you were proposing. Theodorus, you, Theaetetus, who are a young rogue, must not instigate your elders to a breach of faith, but should prepare to answer Socrates in the remainder of the argument. Theaetetus. Yes, if he wishes, as you wish. But I would rather have heard about the doctrine of rest. Theodorus. Invite Socrates to the argument. Invite horsemen to the open plain. Do but ask him, and he will answer. Socrates. Nevertheless, Theodorus, I am afraid that I shall not be able to comply with the request of Theaetetus. Theodorus. Not comply? For what reason? Socrates. My reason is that I have a kind of reverence, not so much for Melissus and the others who say that all is one and at rest, as for the great leader himself, Parmenides, venerable and awful, as in Homeric language he may be called. Him I should be ashamed to approach in a spirit unworthy of him. I met him when he was an old man, and I was a mere youth, and he appeared to me to have a glorious depth of mind. And I am afraid that we may not understand his words, and may be still further from understanding his meaning. Above all, I fear that the nature of knowledge, which is the main subject of our discussion, may be thrust out of sight by the unbidden guest who will come pouring in upon our feast of discourse, if we let them in. Besides, the question which is now stirring is of immense extent, and will be treated unfairly, if only considered by the way, or if treated adequately and at length, will put into the shade the other questions of knowledge. Neither the one nor the other can be allowed. But I must try by my art of midwifery to deliver Theaetetus of his conceptions about knowledge. Theaetetus. Very well. Do so if you will. Socrates. Then now, Theaetetus, take another view of the subject. You answered that knowledge is perception. Perception? Question mark. Theaetetus, I did. Socrates, and if anyone were to ask you, with what does a man see black and white colors, and with what does he hear high and low sounds, you would say, if I am not mistaken, with the eyes and with the ears. I should. The free use of words and phrases, rather than minute precision, is generally characteristic of a liberal education, and the opposite is pedantic. But sometimes precision is necessary. And I believe that the answer which you have just given is open to the charge of incorrectness, for which is more correct to say that we see or hear with the eyes and with the ears, or through the eyes and through the ears. Theaetetus, I should say through Socrates, rather than with Socrates. Yes, my boy, for no one can suppose that in each of us, as in a sort of Trojan horse, there are perched a number of unconnected senses, which do not at all meet in some one nature, the mind, or whatever we please to call it, of which they are the instruments, and with which through them we perceive objects of sense. Theaetetus, I agree with you in that opinion. Socrates. The reason why I'm thus precise, because I want to know whether, when we perceive black and white through the eyes, and again other qualities through other organs, we do not perceive them with one and the same part of ourselves. And if you were asked, you might refer all such perceptions to the body. Perhaps, however, I had better allow you to answer for yourself and not interfere. Tell me then, where is fancy bred? In the heart or in the head? No, that's not what he said. He said, tell me then, are not the organs through which you perceive warm and hard and light and sweet organs of the body? Theaetetus, of the body, certainly. Socrates. And you would admit that what you perceive through one faculty, you cannot perceive through another? The objects of hearing, for example, cannot be perceived through sight, or the objects of sight through hearing? Of course not. Socrates. If you have any thought about both of them, this common perception cannot come to you, either through the one or the other organ. It cannot. How about sounds and colors? In the first place, you would admit that they both exist. Yes. And that either of them is different from the other, and the same with itself? Certainly. And that both are two and each of them one? Yes. You can further observe whether they are like or unlike one another. I dare say. But through what do you perceive all this about them? For neither through hearing, nor yet through seeing, can you apprehend that which they have in common. Let me give you an illustration of the point at issue. If there were any meaning in asking whether sounds and colors are the same or not, you would be able to tell me what faculty would consider the question. It would not be sight or hearing, but some other. Theaetetus, certainly. The faculty of taste. Okay, I need to reread that. Oh, salty then probably. Let's say salty. If there were any meaning in asking whether sounds or colors are salty or not, you would be able to tell me what faculty would consider the question. It would not be sight or hearing, but some other. Certainly, the faculty of taste. Socrates, very good. And now tell me, what is the power? What is the power which discerns not only in sensible objects, but in all things? Universal notions, such as those which are called being and not being, and those of others about which we were just asking. What organs will you assign for the perception of these notions? Theaetetus. You are thinking of being and not being, likeness and unlikeness, sameness and difference, and also of unity and other numbers which are applied to objects of sense. And you mean to ask through what bodily organ the soul perceives odd and even numbers and other arithmetical conceptions. Socrates. You follow me excellently, Theaetetus. That is precisely what I'm asking. Theaetetus. Indeed, Socrates, I cannot answer. My only notion is that these, unlike objects of sense, have no separate organ, but that the mind, by a power of her own, contemplates the universals in all things. You are a beauty, Theaetetus, and not ugly, as Theodorus was saying. He said he looked like Socrates in the beginning of the dialogue, and Socrates was known for not being very attractive. For he who utters the beautiful is himself beautiful and good. And besides being beautiful, you have done me a kindness in releasing me from a very long discussion. If you are clear that the soul views things by herself and others through the body organs, for that was my own opinion, and I wanted you to agree with me. I am quite clear. Socrates. And to which class would you refer being or essence? For this, of all our notions, is the most universal. I would say to that class which the soul aspires to know of herself. And would you say this also of like and unlike, same and other? Yes. And would you say the same of the noble and base? These two words can also be translated as beautiful and ugly. And the good and the evil or bad. Theaetetus. These I conceive to be notions which are essentially relative, and which the soul also perceives by comparing in herself things past and present with the future. Socrates. And does she not perceive the hardness of that which is hard by the touch, and the softness of that which is soft equally by the touch? Yes. But their essence and what they are, and the opposition to one another, and the essential nature of this opposition, the soul herself endeavors to decide for us by the review and comparison of them. Certainly. The simple sensations which reach the soul through the body are given at birth to men and animals by nature, but their reflections on the being and use of them are slowly and hardly gained, if they are ever gained, by education and long experience. Assuredly. And can a man attain truth who fails of attaining being? Impossible. And can he who misses the truth of anything have a knowledge of that thing? He cannot. Thus far our scripture of the evening. I'm just going to reread Socrates' last statement because I'm not sure that I got it as deeply as I would have liked to get it. The simple sensations which reach the soul through the body are given at birth to men and animals by nature, but their reflections on the being and use of them are slowly and hardly gained, if they are ever gained, by education and long experience. Now that just sounds to me like a very good summary of what is knowledge. Some things we know at birth and some things we are taught and learn. Before we begin, I do have to bring your attention, if you have not noticed yet, this was my gift from Rebecca, a tea towel. I will place it somewhere else. I just wanted to place it here tonight to show you. Maybe you recognize one of the characters. Guess who? And I imagine the shorter one is Rebecca. We do actually have videos and photos of me holding her and hugging her very protectively. I am probably shorter than her, I imagine. I'm shorter than most people. But just as I am called the dark one, not because of appearance, I'm also a bit of a tower of refuge and strength. But yeah, the older sister or the mother to my sisters. Back to Plato. Now, I could not help think about the brain. And that's why I started quoting a quote quoted by O'Connor in his conversation on the brain. For where, not only where our senses, the information received from the senses are actually indeed in a way connected, because it's one, well, that's debatable, I guess. But it's in quite a condensed space. And then what Socrates seems to be getting at the end of this passage, and I thought it was interesting because I've made progress with the Peterson Academy course on epistemology. The first couple of lectures, up until 4, was mostly on metaphysics. And then in 4, he started with epistemology, and I'm now at 7, well, still to watch 7, which is called The Human Being, so I'm really looking forward to that, and there's probably 8, there's usually 8. But he started also with this whole learning through perceiving, like what the senses teach us. Empirical knowledge, I suppose. And then he moved, which is a very natural move to make. We see, and then we interpret. We reason. We try to understand that which we perceive with our different senses. And there are other ways then. Lecture 6 was on faith. But honestly, that seems, tonight at least, irrelevant to me. Oh, man. I almost forgot, but I see I wrote it down. He threw in a teaser of Parmenides here. Now, there is dialogue on Parmenides, which is quite a famous dialogue for the fact that Socrates is defeated. I'm not sure that that's the right name, the word. Oh, sorry. My words are stumbling over each other today. He's Plato's famous theories of forms are refuted. That's the word. Refuted by Parmenides. in the Parmenides dialogue. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I was hoping we'll come to it a little bit tonight, but we did not. Parmenides, I think he wrote a poem which starts off with the goddess leading him into a cave or underground, to showing the nature of all being. And he then writes his thesis in a poetry form. I would really like to look deeper into Parmenides. On the one, we'll cross that bridge as well when we get to it. I was thinking about the online make-believe monastery. Now, I've only committed myself officially for a year to doing this, although I do have plans for 4 years, as I've mentioned in the introductory video. But maybe from 2, the good, when we get into the new Platonic reading order, and I might start going a little bit more esoteric. Then maybe I'll move to another platform. And then when we get to the one, if we do get to the one, I don't want a paywall because I don't want to be paid, but it would be cool if you have to kind of be initiated to be able to, though I suppose one could also be initiated on YouTube. I do have videos that people send me that's not viewable by all people, so it's possible. Yeah, but that's far in the future, so let's not cross that bridge at all, because we may never have to. I also thought it was interesting, his reference to words and how we use words freely, which is actually a sign generally, he says, of nobility, because we can freely use our words, or precisely, which is sometimes called for, as in this case, he says. And I saw a meme, or I don't know if it's of like basically every single philosopher on one side, and then those simply playing with words or something like that, the language game, and then one philosopher on the other side. And I think it's just a face, but I'm quite sure it's Wittgenstein. So I'm curious to read him again at a certain point. And they make fun of the Parmenidians for having to make new words. But the truth of the matter is, if we progress in understanding, we will need new words to express what we newly understand, right? Maybe. That is all for Plato for tonight. I do quickly want to comment on the books that I read on my pilgrimage. I take back the fact that I said I am very much like Simone Weil. I'm nothing like her. Like, there are things that we are similar, but she's extremely life-denying, and I'm not into that. Reading the two of them, like one after each, like bit of him, bit of her, bit of him, bit of her, like really, at a certain point, right in the beginning almost, you don't know if is this the mystic and this the pessimist, or is this the mystic and this the pessimist? They just, both of them are pessimistic mystics. They become the same person if you read them together, which is maybe now why I really do not see myself in her. I love reading him. I think he's hilarious, but not for everyone, I would say. If you're inclined to, It's really easy being me. I suffer from chronic cheerfulness. I heard someone say, I can't remember who, but I do too. On that, like, long time ago, I did that Big 5 personality test, and I scored like 98%, yeah, 98. It's the other way around in my language. I'm not always sure, but it's 98, so 98. On I don't agree with the choice of words, so now I can't remember it. The extroversion, which is basically assertiveness and happiness. So I'm quite ridiculously happy, naturally. So for me, reading, although I had an exquisite case of ennui in Paris, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but so I can, if I choose to go there, but I recover pretty quickly. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be reading Plato with you again, and I'm looking forward to the remainder of our journey. May the spirit of Sophia be with you.